Building a portfolio with Fidelity Basket Portfolios is kind of like making a sandwich. It's as simple as picking your stocks and ETFs, sort of like your meats and other topics, and managing it as one big, juicy investment. Now that's pretty good. Learn more at fidelity.com/baskets. Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Member NYSE SIPC.
Today we're going to conquer your EV phobia in the all-electric Toyota BZ.
I can do this. I'm doing it!
One drive can change your mind in the all-electric BZ. Toyota, let's go places.
The Rev and the Rabbi. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Good morning. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Reverend, we are most honored to have with us His Eminence, Timothy Cardinal Dolan, Archbishop of New York, a close friend, a member of our family. And, Rev, I would add to that, they have the best titles of anybody I know. We got
and the best duds.
we got the
Boy, when I dial up, I tell you, I was at it's good to be with you, Rabbi and Reverend. How much I appreciate and love you both. So thanks for the invitation, especially as Thanksgiving is close. I was at some dinner once, and Barbara Walters came up to me. And they had told, this is some official thing, they said, please dial up. So I wore the full. She comes up to me and gets real close and says, do you realize that every woman in this room is jealous of you because of what you're wearing? I said, I don't know if that's a compliment or not.
Yeah, that's funny. So we intend to talk somewhat about Thanksgiving. And I was looking at the Bible, the Jewish Bible, the Torah. And Leah, who is the wife of Jacob, gives birth to a fourth child. And says, for this child also I give thanks. That was the first reference to Thanksgiving. And the question is, what do you mean also? And the message is, just as you give thanks for the first child, you give thanks for every child. Don't take a blessing for granted. And I think Thanksgiving is a time to say, let's look around, see who's with us, remember those who are not with us, but let's remember we have much to be grateful for throughout the year.
Do we ever? Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Reverend Bernard. We were just chatting, folks, listening to us before we went on about our visits to prisons. And you talk about gratitude, Rabbi, and wherever we're at, there's an occasion for gratitude, even if we're down, even if things are looking tough. When I go to visit the prisoners, many of them will say to me, it's tough being here, but in some ways I'm grateful, because if I were not here, I may be dead. I'd still be on drugs. I'd still be with the gang. I'd still be robbing stores. They don't all say that. I have to be candid. But the number of guys that will say, I'm just kind of grateful that I'm here, as tough as it is. And that ability to give thanks, even in distress, is something, isn't it?
You know what I find? They're also very grateful for the chaplains, that people come, spend time, talk about faith, take a personal interest in the lives of those who are serving in these challenging conditions, and they express their gratitude. So it's very nice to hear.
You bet.
Do you gentlemen perceive that there is an attitude of ingratitude? Cardinal, you will be familiar with this passage from the letter of Paul to Timothy, 2 Timothy 3:2, when it talks about the disposition of individuals. And it says that, they're going to be proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents. But it also lists unthankful. And that's almost 2,000 years ago that this was written, and an expression of the attitude of society. Are we experiencing, because Rabbi and I have talked about a deficiency of empathy, but also is there a deficiency of gratitude?
Well said, Reverend Bernard. I think there is. We've often spoken in the past about what we fear is this culture of entitlement. Entitlement. When you feel, I am owed this, I've got this coming to me, then you don't have gratitude. You don't have gratitude. If you're entitled to things, why would you thank somebody for it? Because it's yours. You got it coming to you. If we read the Bible properly, in many ways we don't owed anything. Everything we have is a gift. The next breath I take is a gift from God. So we have and what you just said, Reverend Bernard, Paul, you mentioned the contradiction, but Paul will often mention gratitude as a virtue. In other words, it's one of the, and in fact, there's a lot of great spiritual writers in all of our traditions that would mention gratitude as the beginning of friendship with the Lord.
Yeah.
Because when we realize it gives us a humility, which is that fundamental virtue of knowing that everything we have comes from a good God. And we owe him our love and gratitude.
One of the things I find distasteful is when someone says it's their job. You mentioned here you have people who risk their lives, whether it's firefighters, police, the first responders, and I say you got to give thanks to them. And sometimes I'll hear, well, they signed up for this. And I think, how ungrateful are you?
Yeah, how ungrateful. And we ought to thank them for signing up for it.
Yeah.
You know what? Because we were just you and I were just at the funeral of Patrick Brady last Saturday out at St. Francis de Sales. You talk about immense gratitude for that guy, the person he was and the life he gave in trying to protect human life. There was amazing gratitude there.
And the love for their faith. They very often do this because of their faith.
Reverend Bernard, they mentioned one of the eulogies that the rabbi and I had to sit through a number of eulogies. Some of them are good, some of them you're thinking, uh-oh. But the one that said the 3 F's get us through: faith, friends, and family. Mm-hmm. Faith, friends, and family. So 3 F's, and I thought, wow, that's a good. I got my Thanksgiving homily ready.
Isn't that important, what we as clergy, religious leaders, bring to society? This idea that without an anchor for the soul, we have nothing to protect us from what we can become when our humanity runs out. And that's a dangerous place to be. So faith that brings moral consciousness, transcendent morality and ethics is so important to a society. Gentlemen?
Remember who said that, Reverend Bernard, that we talked about him, that Alexis de Tocqueville, who to this day is noted as probably the most perceptive commentator on this American experiment in democracy. He came here from France in the 1830s and wrote that magnificent book. And he said, as a Frenchman, I asked, how can this democracy survive? And he said, it will survive in the United States because faith and religion are strong. And when faith and religion is strong, you have a check on the raw appetites that can sometimes drive us. And that's what you were just saying, A.R.
I was talking to Controller DiNapoli, Tom DiNapoli. I said, Controller, you often list unclaimed funds. There are people who have funds they don't know about, and they don't claim them. And I said, I think we also have in this world unclaimed gratitude, that there are things we should be grateful for. For example, in growing up, how much did we appreciate our parents until we got older, right? Or they left the world. We said, oh, my God, they were extraordinary people.
You meet him, Rabbi Potasnik, and when I go to a wake, I'll never forget, I was a young priest, and there was the grandpa died, and the kid I knew pretty well. He was 14 years old, and he's sobbing at the casket, and I'm trying to console him. And all he said to me is, I never got to thank him. I never thanked him for who he was and what he did for me. And I thought, kid, you just learned one of the best lessons you could.
Yeah.
That speaks to the fact that Scripture is more than just a religious text. It's a lens through which we see life, which we understand ourselves, our relationship to others. So it's a lot more than just a religious text. Yeah.
And Reverend Bernard, don't you find, you and I can say this, Joe will heartily agree, Rabbi Potasnik, I find that especially in the Psalms. The Jewish Psalms.
Which you took from us.
We borrowed it from the library. But every human emotion is in there, good and bad. You know it?
Yeah.
And the older I get, the more I appreciate the Psalms.
In Jewish liturgy, so in Jewish liturgy, you wake up in the morning and the first prayer you're to say is called in Hebrew Modeh Ani, I give thanks. And throughout the day, You have to say thank you 100 times a day. There are so many blessings. 100 times a day you're saying thank you. So it's rooted in our respective traditions. You can't go through a day. You can't go through life without saying thank you. And I remember,
Rabbi Potasnik, but I remember somebody told me once, said, the first thing I do in the morning is think of eternity. I said, boy, that's good. And he said, yeah, as I'm getting out of bed, I say, oh, hell. Now, I don't think that's what you had in mind. But
No. But it's also that Reverend Bernard will use that as a sermon, I assure you.
Of course, gentlemen, we're going to have to go to a break.
I borrow from you, buddy. You can borrow from me.
Yeah, we're going to have to go to a break, but let me say this in closing this particular segment. There's a wonderful passage in the New Testament, and it says, "In all things give thanks." Not for all things, but in all things give thanks. And we need to unpack that a little bit because I'd love to hear what both of you have to say. Stay tuned for more of the Rev and the Rabbi right here on Red Apple Radio Networks.
If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy. Download and subscribe at BeBullish.com.
Oh, Hilton stay. Your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay, oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
With new, gentler scented Clorox disinfecting wipes, clean finally smells as good as it feels. On everything from lamps to ceiling fans, even on your kid's toy shark. Oh, ouch. Clorox disinfecting wipes, now available in crisp lemon. Find it on Amazon. Clorox, clean feels good.
The Rev and the Rabbi on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
And I am Timothy Cardinal Dolan.
Jumping right in, but there's a difference between giving thanks in all things and giving thanks for all things. And the Bible doesn't require us to be grateful for things that are, just atrocities. Can you two gentlemen speak to that?
Yeah, that's a good point, Reverend Bernard. We don't give thanks for atrocities. We wonder why, and God's as upset as we are most of the time. But we can always give thanks that we have a God who's ultimately in charge, and who can bring some meaning, direction, and focus out of the worst tragedies. I remember once being in a little 2-year-old baby died of cancer at Sloan Kettering, and I had been close to the folks. And the mom was so upset, and she began to cry and look at me and say, why would God do this? What did we do to deserve this? How can there be a good God? And the husband just said, honey, how could God have given us this beautiful baby to begin with? We had this baby for 2 years. We're both crushed. We don't have this baby longer, but let's give thanks that we had this baby for the 2 years. I thought, my, oh, my, what faith. And you talk about gratitude in adversity. My, oh, my.
There is a custom at a Jewish funeral. A person dies, and you tear part of the clothing, or some people use a ribbon, and you recite a blessing. Blessed art thou, Lord of the universe, judge of truth. And you say, wait a minute, I'm tearing a ribbon which symbolizes tearing of my heart, and I'm reciting a blessing. And Cardinal, in keeping with what you just said, it teaches you whatever you had, whether it was little or a little bit more, be thankful for that, and be thankful for the people who did everything humanly possible to prolong that life.
See? Yeah.
So we always try to find, what do they say? The eyes are composed of two parts, the light and the dark, but you only see out of the dark. That even in the darkness, the difficulty, you look out and you try to find the light and love.
Cardinal, every now and then he gives me a few sermons, so you got to listen closely.
As long as I don't have to listen to him, fine. All right.
Cardinal, before we lose you, College of Bishops came out with a statement concerning immigration. And interesting thing is because, we tend to be conservative and right of center, and we hold to the life and dignity of the human person. These are our social ethics. And so we tend to lean in certain political directions because of that. But when those political directions violate other ethics that we stand for, we have to say something. We have to exercise our prophetic voice. And the College of Bishops, and you did that. Speak to that, please, Cardinal.
Well, thank you. Thanks for reading it, Reverend Bernard. Most Catholics haven't, so I'm glad you and Joe have. Let's put it in perspective. We get criticized for it, but I said read it carefully. First of all, we say it's the duty of government to control the borders. It's the duty of government to protect their citizens from dangerous people. So when you're talking about immigration reform, if you mean to tighten the border, if you mean to send cutthroats back, hallelujah, we're on your side. But two things. Don't punish the good immigrants who are here. Never would we minimize their humanity because they don't have a green card or a passport. And please, and this is patriotic, it's not just religious, let's not damage the magnificent, the stellar pedigree of America in being a home and a refuge for the Americans. Those are conservative principles, aren't they? In many ways, you could say this comes from patriotism. I'm not just for protecting the immigrants because I happen to be a believer. I'm also a patriotic American who knows that immigrants have been a tremendous blessing for this country. And yes, do we need to have a sane, vigilant border? You bet we do. Do we have to make sure the cutthroats don't get in, or if they have, send them back? Yep. But boy, oh boy, we do not caricature the immigrant. And please, let's do nothing to chip away at that magnificent legacy of welcome that has made this country the great one that it is.
The Bible, Torah, mentions the stranger 36 times. Remember, because you were strangers, remember the stranger. And one of the things that I find very troubling is, Your Eminence and Reverend, that we have this contempt for the other, and whatever the other happens to be at that moment. Could be the one we call an outsider, the one who has an other opinion than we do, but there is a contempt for it. How dare you disagree with me? How dare you be here? We don't discuss it, we denigrate. And that is so troubling. That you mentioned humanity. We seem to have lost in many cases the humanity of the other who is different than we are.
Way to go, Rabbi. And you, as a prominent Jewish leader, can say that because you have, and now it's again this vicious anti-Semitism, where our Jewish neighbors are classically characterized as the other, the other. And this is just bad. Mother Teresa used to say, try not to say they. Let's say we. We. We're in this together. Right. We're all children of God. We're all made in His image and likeness. There's not an other. It's us.
Yeah. Cardinal, it's very important, and Rabbi also, because this has to do with both the Hebrew Scriptures and the Christian New Testament. Cardinal, in the beginning of our conversation, you casually said it, but it's so important. You said, if you read it properly, speaking of the Bible, if you read it properly, which means you can misread it, intentionally misread it, to justify certain things that are totally inconsistent or diametrically opposed to the message of Scripture. Is that what we're seeing in our society?
Well, the old saying, the devil can quote Scripture for his own ends. So we always have to put it as part. That's why I think we, certainly those of the Jewish faith, but I think, Reverend Bernard, we always say the Scriptures are always read through the lens of our tradition and through the community. Mm-hmm. It's not a private book, all right? It belongs to all of us. And when we give it a private interpretation, yeah, we got to apply it to ourselves, that's for sure. But when we give it an excessively privatized interpretation to suit our own ends, that's, it's not ours to tamper with. We're reading it as part. We're reading it as part of a thousands and thousands of years of wisdom and inspiration that we always have to take into consideration when we're trying to apply the sacred teachings of Scripture.
Look, we look at the Bible, and it begins with the story of creation, and it states, "Let us create man in our image, not your image, in our image," and therefore we all have that same spiritual birth certificate as children of God, as members of one human family. There's a reason for
Rabbi,
that.
be careful, because Reverend Bernard and I will use this as an occasion to jump into the doctrine of the Blessed Trinity. Father, Son, and Spirit. But we don't need to get into that.
That you didn't take from us, I can tell you that. Yeah. We have just a few minutes. Go ahead. Rabbi.
Yeah, national religion. We talked about this. And the whole idea of nationalizing a specific religion. And that's crazy talk for me, because America was founded by those who were trying to escape a national religion. Cardinal, Rabbi?
Way to go, Reverend Bernard. Yes, a national religion. That doesn't mean we have a nationalized religion. That doesn't mean we have an imposed religion. That doesn't mean we equate the goals of the nation with God's goals. But it does mean that at the core of our existence as a grand republic is biblical wisdom, what God has revealed about the dignity of the human person, the necessity of freedom, and the common good. Those are all biblical. Those are all biblical teachings that animate everything we do in the United States. So, I'm not to talk about a national religious sentiment. I think, hallelujah, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And is it ever more evident than on Thanksgiving Day?
That should be the biggest challenge we have. Is that on this day, Thanksgiving, we all come together, express gratitude to God, to our family, to our faith. If that is a problem, then we are very blessed to have that problem. Right? That should be our biggest. My mother would say that should be your biggest problem. Before we go, Your Eminence, I know I speak for the Rev on this. We are thankful to you because you've made interfaith relations a priority in your ministry.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
You have enlarged the circle. There are more people at the table than ever before. So New York, the country, and by extension, the world of New York is the capital of the world. We are blessed to have you leading us.
You, Joe Potasnik, are characteristically gracious. Thank you, AR. And if I have been able to do that, you kind of think I have in a little way, I couldn't have done it without the companionship of two folks like you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your gracious words.
My friends.
Thank you.
Okay?
All right.
We'll be there at 1 o'clock at your residence for that dinner. So thank you right now. I know.
Bring the pumpkin pies. All right.
It'll be kosher. I don't know how good it'll be, but it'll be kosher. All right.
Thanks for listening to The Rev and the Rabbi. You can hear The Rev and the Rabbi Sunday mornings at 7. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here. Wishing you a very happy half-off holiday, because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day. Yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds low after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.